So, how does a rogue city of pirates, a city literally born from chaos and a thirst for revenge, end up as the front line in a massive clash between two of the world's greatest empires? Well, today, we're diving into the wild story of Algiers and how one single, desperate decision completely redrew the map of the Mediterranean. It's really a story with three main ingredients. You've got a region full of crumbling kingdoms, a rising superpower looking to expand, and a massive high-stakes gamble by a pirate that would kick off a conflict lasting for centuries. To really get how this all went down, we need to turn back the clock. All right, so let's set the scene. We're at the end of the 15th century, and North Africa, the Maghreb as it's known, was in a really bad way. The whole region was basically falling apart at the seams. The local kingdoms there were caught in this deadly pincer movement. I mean, look at this. From the north, you've got a newly unified and super aggressive Spain pushing its way across the Mediterranean. And at the same time, from the sea, Portugal's navy had just sailed all the way around Africa, and in doing so, they completely cut off the old trans-Saharan trade routes. For centuries, that's how West African gold flowed north. And if you think things were bad on the outside, internally, it was a total mess. The once great kingdoms of Tlemcen, Tunis, and Fez were just shells of their former selves. Their central power had completely collapsed, local tribes were doing their own thing, and major port cities like Algiers were pretty much independent city-states. This created this huge power vacuum right on Europe's doorstep. So you've got this whole crisis, and it's basically a powder keg just waiting for a spark. And that spark, well, it came from the very last Muslim state in Spain, the Emirate of Granada. And the chain of events here is just brutally simple. See, when Portugal cut off that Saharan gold trade, Granada suddenly couldn't afford the massive tribute it was paying to the Spanish Kingdom of Castile just to be left alone. This gave the newly united Spanish monarchy the perfect excuse they needed to invade. So in 1492, Granada fell. Centuries of Muslim rule in Spain were over, and it sent these huge waves of refugees fleeing across the sea. Now, these weren't just any refugees. They poured into the coastal cities of North Africa, in some cases doubling the population of places like Algiers overnight. And they brought with them all their skills, all their knowledge, and an absolutely burning desire for revenge against the kingdom that had just taken everything from them. And this is what gives birth to a whole new kind of piracy. This wasn't just about reading for loot anymore. It became what's known as a jihad maritime, a holy war at sea. It was organized, it was relentless, and you better believe it was personal. This was war waged by people who knew the Spanish coast inside and out and were absolutely determined to strike back. Now, this new kind of war, well, it needed a new kind of leader, and two brothers would soon show up to answer that call. You had all this rage, this desire for revenge from the refugees. It was like a weapon just sitting there waiting to be picked up. All it needed was someone to lead the charge. And that's when Aruj and Hayreddin enter the picture. They were two Greek brothers, highly skilled corsairs. And they weren't more than just pirates. These guys were brilliant military strategists, and they saw the incredible opportunity in this chaotic new world. To the Europeans, they would become known as the fearsome Barbarossa brothers. Aruj, the older brother, he was just a force of nature. He set up a base and very quickly got famous for taking the fight to the Spanish. He even lost an arm in battle, but that only made his reputation grow. So in 1516, the people of Algiers, who were sick of being basically puppets of Spain, invited him to come help. But Aruj, he didn't just liberate Algiers, he killed their ruler and took the city for himself. His ambition was absolutely limitless, but in the end, that's what got him. Just 2 years later, he was killed fighting the Spanish. Aruj's death left his younger brother, Hayreddin, in a truly impossible spot. I mean, he was all alone, surrounded by enemies, and his little pirate kingdom was about to collapse. So he had to make a choice that would literally change the course of history. Hayreddin was smart. He knew he couldn't hold Algiers by himself. The Spanish were coming for him, and all the local rulers saw him as a threat. So his next move, it wasn't about ambition like his brother. No, this was about pure survival. He sent ambassadors to the most powerful Muslim ruler in the world, the Ottoman Sultan, Selim I. And the Sultan, he accepted. And this move was absolutely genius. He gave Hayreddin the super prestigious title of Bey, which means Lord of Lords. Now, this wasn't just a fancy title, it was a complete transformation. In the blink of an eye, Hayreddin went from being a renegade pirate to a legitimate high-ranking Ottoman governor. And Algiers? It was no longer a rogue pirate den, it was now an official province of the mighty Ottoman Empire. And let me tell you, the Sultan backed this up with some serious muscle. Arouge had been operating with maybe a few hundred Turkish fighters. The Sultan sent Hayreddin 6,000 janissaries. We're talking about the elite special forces of the Ottoman army. The entire balance of power in North Africa shifted, literally, overnight. So what Hayreddin did out of pure desperation ended up having massive global consequences. It took this regional squabble and blew it up into a superpower showdown. It basically drew a line in the sand right down the middle of the Mediterranean. And this decision created a whole new world order. Think of it like this. On one side, you've got the Habsburg Empire of Charles V, controlling Spain, a huge chunk of Europe. On the other side, you've got the Ottoman Empire under Suleiman the Magnificent, dominating the east. And Algiers? It had just become the Ottomans' westernmost fortress, a forward base aimed like a dagger right at the heart of Habsburg power. All of a sudden, this once kind of minor port city was now the central battleground. It was the front line for control of the entire Mediterranean. Everything, and I mean everything, now hinged on what happened in Algiers. And the Habsburgs, they knew it. In 1541, Emperor Charles V himself decided, okay, that's it, we're ending this threat once and for all. He put together a massive invasion fleet and an army of over 36,000 soldiers to personally lead an attack to crush Algiers. This was one of the biggest naval expeditions of the entire century. He brought his top commanders, even Hernán Cortés, the guy who conquered the Aztecs, was there. But just as his forces were landing, a freak storm just rolled in out of nowhere. It smashed his fleet to pieces, ruined his supplies, and turned the ground into a sea of mud. The defenders of Algiers just poured out and routed the disorganized army. It was a catastrophic, humiliating disaster for Charles V, and it cemented Ottoman control of Algiers for the next 300 years. And that brings us back to that incredible question. How on earth did this all happen? It was a chain reaction, right? It was started by economic shifts and a refugee crisis. It was weaponized by two ambitious pirate brothers, and it all culminated in a single, desperate plea for help. That one decision didn't just save Hayreddin. It completely remade the map of the world.